Hey everybody, this is Lawrence at Dirty Basement Terrain. In this episode, we're going to be doing something that's very simple, very easy, does not require any complex tools other than a sharp blade and paint and all that happy hoo-ha. We're going to be doing brick columns. These are very simple, very beginner friendly, and best of all, it's made out of foam core, more specifically, Ready Board foam core from the Dollar Tree. So, not a very expensive project to make, very simple to make, maybe a little bit time consuming, but it's easy to make. Now I'm going to walk you through how I make them. Hope you like it. Enjoy!
Okay, this is simple. We're just pulling paper off of one side of our Ready Board foam core. And here I'm just using a T-square to mark out 1-inch increments for the sections of column. And then I'm going to use this longer T-square to be able to mark out the lines of the individual segments. Like I said, we're going for 1-inch square, and just to make it simple. Now I'm marking out 1 inch in the other direction, and I'm using my T-square now. I'm not lining it, I'm just using my T-square now to grab my blade and run light lines through trying to cut. I'm not trying to cut through the whole way through, though it does happen, but I'm trying to just cut through down to the paper for this time. I've already run the blade in the other direction, but right now I'm just trying to, if you have to do multiple passes, that's fine. I'm just really not trying to run the whole way through. And here I'm going to mark out for the bases and the tops of the columns. I'm going to mark out 1.5-inch squares. I want a bigger size for the tops and the bottoms. Aesthetically, I like it. Do you have to do it that big? No. But again, this is an aesthetic choice that I like. So I'm going to be marking out at 1.5-inch increments for this. And now I'm grabbing my metal ruler to help guide the blade to trim up how far out I measured out to, because I don't want extra chunks of foam hanging off when I actually go to try and cut up the squares. It'll just make it easier to cut. Of course, now that I've got it cut out to the area I want to use, I'm going to start marking off the actual squares that I'm going to be cutting eventually. Again, I'm just going with 1.5-inch squares. Like I said, it's just an aesthetic choice. You can go smaller or bigger if you want. And it's a good idea to use a metal ruler again as when you're cutting, because that'll help guide the blade if you need the help. Lord knows I need it. But I'm not purposely trying to cut the whole way through when I'm trying to cut these squares. If I have to make multiple passes, I'm going to make multiple passes, but I just want to get at least cut down to the paper. Now that I've got my work area cleaned up, I'm going to use the foil ball to texture the edges of the 1-inch squares. Now just the edges, you don't need to do anything else. And here I just want to show you the difference between the 1.5 and 1-inch squares. It's an aesthetic choice. And of course I'm grabbing the foil ball again and texturing the edges of the 1.5-inch squares. The difference is I will be texturing the entire thing, top and bottom. Part of it will be covered up with the 1-inch squares, but it makes it easier to just texture the whole top part of it at the very least, rather than trying to just make sure you. It's just easier. Trust me on this one. Okay, now this part might take some time. Grab your expensive sculpting tool, the pencil, and start marking out the brick lines. Now I'll do one line on one side, then go to the opposite side and do one line. And the other two sides I'll do 2 lines to represent bricks. And this will make sense later when you actually start stacking the bricks. You want to have them. You don't want to have a single line going the whole way up. Here I'm going to try and show you why we carved the lines, or I carved the lines into the bricks the way I did. It'll make sense in a few seconds, and there you see alternating brick patterns. You don't, like I said, a single line the whole way up. Aesthetically, it's not very pleasing. Now, here I'm just going to basically be grabbing all my different 1-inch squares and stacking them up without gluing them for each and every column that I'm going to be doing. And for this first one I'm just measuring because I want to go for roughly a 3-inch tall column. So once I get up to 3 inches, I'll know how many I can do the rest that way. Don't worry about making the brick patterns match up right because you haven't glued anything, so it honestly just doesn't matter at this point. Now that we've got all of our column stacks made, it's time to start gluing. Basically, I'm using wood glue here and gluing each one together and making sure I have alternating brick patterns. Will you screw up on this? Probably, because honestly, even though I didn't show it, I did screw it up a couple times and I had to fix it quick. So don't worry if you mess up, just as long as you catch it before the glue dries, you'll be okay. Now that all the glue is dry for the columns themselves, I'm going to be attaching the bases. I just want to do the bases first for ease, and now I'm going to be attaching the tops. It's the same as the bases, just a little bit of glue on the column itself, and then try and get it centered up as best as you can. Okay, now we're doing everybody's favorite step, black Mod Podge. With the weakness of the foam core foam, this is a highly recommended and suggested step that you do because it'll strengthen the foam. Of course, now I'm using my dark blue gray from Apple Barrel to give all the columns their first base coat of color. Now in these next couple steps, I'm going to be using Deco Art's Rookwood Red, Deco Art's True Ochre, and Burnt Umber from Apple Barrel. I'm going to be picking out random bricks and painting them a different color, these colors, just to give it a little variation, and so it doesn't look like a solid column of gray. This is honestly for an aesthetic, and I do like the way it lines up looking. Like when they were building these columns, they had to grab a random stone that was around, and they were running low on whatever they were using. So, like I said, I'm just using these three colors, so it does look good. Also, I'm putting random streaks of color on the tops, and the top caps, and then the bottoms as well. Just purely for aesthetic, because I want some streaks of color to show through at the end. And now I'm doing a mid-tone gray with Apple Barrel's pewter gray. I said this is a 80 to 85% coverage. I don't want to get every last bit covered up. Basically, it's an overbrush. And now I'm going for Apple Barrel's Granite Gray, which is a light gray, to give it a highlight, a dry brush with a makeup brush I got from the Dollar Tree. Yay, Dollar Tree. But I'm going to get most of that paint off the brush. Just give it a quick dry brush. I want to be able to show the stone, every last brick and whatnot, and show all the indentations and the caps and the cap pieces in the base. Of course, as my usual go-to, I like to use a dark brown wash instead of black. I like to give stone that dark, dirty, nasty look instead of, just worrying about the shadows. Go ahead and use black if you want to. This is just my preference. Now that the wash is all good and dry, I'm grabbing the Apple Barrel Granite Gray again, because I want to bring back up the highlights and the edges of the stone again. And I'm just using the makeup brush from the Dollar Tree again, and give it a dry brush going from the top down, and maybe top down at an angle, but because I want it to be, like light was hitting it. Of course, here I want to give it some dust and dirt, so I'm using pigment powder. Well, as usual, I'm using soft pastel chalk that's been scraped into a powder. I'm going to get some around the base, where the bricks meet the base, and maybe a few places throughout the column. Just where I think it could use some dirt and just look kind of nasty and black, But again, just to show, give a little extra shadows to certain places, maybe where the bricks don't quite line up. I'm going to put some on. Again, just where it feels like, yeah, this spot could use this. And I'm going to use some IPA, isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol, whatever you want to call it, to spray onto the columns to set them in so the chalk won't rub off. And now I'm going to be adding some moss because it's gray and I want it to give some color to it. Moss is always good for that. So I'm just basically putting them wherever I feel like moss would be, and there's no real method to how I put the moss on. Just, yeah, that looks good. I'm going to put it there. And now everything's dry, and I hope you like how it looks.
Hey everybody, if you made it this far, it means you watched it to the end, and as always, I really do appreciate it. If you like the video, hit thumbs up. If you want to see more, click subscribe. If you want to leave a comment, it's somewhere, I never know where it is, but it's somewhere. If you want to get a hold of me directly, you can do that through my Discord page. There is a link in the About tab of the Dirty Basement page. If you got questions, need advice, that's the place to go, because even if I don't answer or can't answer it, there are many other crafters on there, and they can help you out with what you need. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Just remember, as always, when you're crafting your terrain, the only person you only have to worry about is you, because it's still your terrain.